on day 4 of our study series on Jesus. Again, I want to emphasize I am nowhere near covering. You really need to go through and just read the Gospels. My suggestion is the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of John. John's straightforward. You have 21 chapters. You can do 7 chapters in 3 days or 3 chapters in 7 days, determining how ambitious you are to get through it. And that's just a really good way to get to know Jesus. So as far as a lot of things he said, so I try to handpick things that I feel like might still get the idea across about who he is to add to the foundation of the word. So today we're going to read from Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 through 25. Now this is 2 chunks of passages. The first one's going to talk about how he called people to follow him. The second part's going to show what he did when he was around the people and visiting them. So let's read through the whole passage and then I'll talk about it in length to you. While walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in the boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets, and he called to them. Immediately they left their boat and their father and followed him. And he went throughout all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought him all the sick, those afflicted with various diseases and pains, those oppressed by demons, those having seizures and paralytics, and he healed them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee and the Decapolis, and from Jerusalem and Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. Okay, so you can see that in the beginning, as he's walking, as it says here, by the Sea of Galilee, he was actually calling people, but not just calling them like, hey you, who are you? Let me introduce myself. I'm Jesus. These people probably already knew who he was. They probably already saw him coming around and being who Jesus is, right? And so he called them, but he called them, notice that, that's how he calls them to follow him, but he's actually giving them a purpose. He's using their current trade, their current form of employment, and says, I'll make you fishers of men. I mean, how poetic is that? These are fishermen being told, well, now you're going to fish for men. You're going to know how to reel them in and be a light to them. So I think that's so awesome. I mean, ask yourself this: what's holding you back, if you are, from really truly following Jesus? You know, what is it that maybe you're holding on to or you're afraid to let go of? You know, what conversations are you having? What types of conversations are you having? Are you having them with other Christians, disciples, Christ followers, whatever they call themselves? You're probably wondering why there's 3 different names. We'll discuss that in a later study series. For now, I'm going to refer to them as Christ followers, because I feel like they get the point across. They're actually following Christ. Christ said, follow me, so they're following him, Christ followers. You know, I had this epiphany where there's this point in time very early in the Old Testament where Adam and Eve are in the garden, and the snake, who's referred to as the imagery for Satan, for the devil. And Satan comes up and he's like, did God really say? Now, I've mentioned to you before that in the past that darkness it's not like a very clear, it's not like some of the horrendous things we've seen in our culture or in our society, people walking in the malls with guns just blasting people, or schools, or whatever the case may be. Like, that's an outright obvious evil. In Satan's case, he came trying to pretend as though he's on your side, he's your buddy. He just wants to ask questions, just have some questions. And there's this part where he asks Eve the question, well, did God really say? And Eve responds to him and starts this conversation with him. And I thought to myself, what if she had pretty much not chosen to dialogue with Satan and to figure this out? What if she had just decided to figure out where God is and have him clear the matter up? And it reminded me that I think we do the same thing. Instead of going to God in prayer, going to God with these situations we're facing and we're trying to figure out in our life, we either go to people who don't really know, right? We go to people who we think know, right? So instead of going to the source, like instead of showing up to church and going, I have a list of questions, or how does one go about letting go of this in their life, whatever the case may be. Or are you sitting back and talking about it with your buddy who does the same thing you do? I mean, that's the blind leading the blind, right? So my encouragement is like, hey, if you're going to choose to follow Jesus, follow hard after him. I mean, really, get plugged into church and start getting yourselves surrounded by people who are other Christ followers. The second part of this passage is just more of like, I want to use it in a sense of like, look at what God is doing. He is healing people. He's feeding them. I mean, he's doing these miraculous things. It says his fame grows as a result of it, which means that this further proves there's no way that these thousands of people saw Jesus and were like, oh no, he didn't really exist. He didn't really do those things. Thousands of people saw him. Luke says that he went around and gathered these stories from thousands of people who still remembered the impact that Jesus had on them. And it says that, it was a result that great crowds followed him. These same crowds we know he feeds later. So he heals them, he feeds them, but it also says that he taught them. So important. It's the idea that I can give you a fish and feed you for a day, or I can teach you how to fish and feed you for a lifetime. So that's day 4, just looking at who Jesus is. He called people to follow him. He took care of them in that situation. And it's funny because Jesus actually tells his people, like, yeah, you see these things that I do, you'll do greater things. I don't know about you, but the fact that we have the Holy Spirit inside of us that was sent to us by God allows us to do great things for his glory. And that's what I want to be a part of, and I hope you do too. Well, thanks for watching. Till tomorrow. Thank you for watching today's video, and if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and click the subscribe button, and you should also click the bell as well so you know when I've uploaded new videos. Again, thank you for visiting Euangelion. I hope you have a wonderful day.